Hey, a happy Monday morning from Kansas City. Welcome to SportsBeat Live, where we talk Chiefs. And thanks for joining us on the rare Monday show. We usually wait till Thursday to talk Chiefs, but we could not wait to talk about the Chiefs Browns playoff matchup. The AFC playoff, NFL playoff started this weekend, and we had to wait until the last game to determine who the Chiefs are going to play in the divisional round. We know it is now the Cleveland Browns, and we talk Chiefs with you. Please join us with your questions and comments, and with the people who know this team the best, and that is beat writer Sam McDowell and columnist Sam Mellinger and Vahe Gregorian. Good morning, gentlemen.
What's up?
Hey.
Good morning.
And we are often, in fact, I can't remember the last time we didn't have Herbie Teope here, but he's not here this morning. He had a conflict, so somehow we will muddle through this discussion about the Chiefs. And I got to tell you, fellas, that when the weekend started and I was looking at the possibilities for Chiefs playoff opponents in the divisional round, there were four of them, right? There were the Ravens, the Titans, the Browns, and the Colts. And if I were to assign a percentage chance of the teams that the Chiefs were going to play, I might have had the lowest percentage assigned to the Browns. But here we are, Chiefs and Browns. And of course, like I said, we had to wait until deep into Sunday night to get this thing determined. It could have been over, right? We could have known Saturday afternoon had the Colts found a way to beat the Bills. Didn't happen. And so here we are. The first thing that comes to mind for me are the terrific storylines in this game. Kareem Hunt started his career with the Chiefs. John Dorsey, who's been a general manager for both the Chiefs and the Browns. How about Patrick Mahomes versus Baker Mayfield? All sorts of great storylines that we can talk about and will talk about today and throughout the week. Let's pick one. Let's start with how about if we just start with Kareem Hunt? And let's remember his great rookie season with the Chiefs and why he's no longer a member of the Chiefs. And Sam Mellinger, I believe, I don't know if you heard this, but I believe there was a comment from Kareem Hunt after the game last night that pointed toward this weekend's game with the Chiefs.
Yeah, that video, by the way, is kind of weird. Like, he's by himself. Like, there's no other, like, where are his teammates celebrating with him? You know, it's just sort of like personal for you. Everybody else just scattered. You know, it was just a weird visual. Yeah, like, that's one also that, you know, Browns PR would like to have that one back. I just keep thinking about that. Like, with the Browns version of Brad G or Ted Cruz is just kind of Kareem.
Yeah,
keep that one in the holster, buddy.
Well, so why is it personal? What was that about? Because,
well, I mean, look, like, if we were to rank the top 100 delusional ways that an athlete gets himself motivated for a game, like, this would be nowhere near the list. You know, like, this is what they do. It's what, you know, people in other walks of life do too. I mean, it's been, is it 3 years? It was or no? Yeah,
2018.
Two seasons. 2.5.
Yeah,
it was the 18th season.
Yeah, it was the 18th season. Like a week, I think week 11. They were about to go to play the Raiders, right?
Yeah.
They were getting on a plane to go play Oakland.
Yeah, so that's a long time for anybody, any human to grow. You know, and I'm not saying like Kareem has or hasn't done that, but it's also a chance for, you know, you revisionist, you know, and I think he's probably gone down that road. But there is no logical way that you could look at the facts and think that the Chiefs screwed over Kareem Hunt in any way. The Chiefs get mad when I say this, but I say it because it's true. They did not kick him off the team. They did not release him because of what was on the video. They released him because he lied about what was on the video and did it repeatedly, emphatically, and to some of the most respected people in the organization. That's why they cut him.
Yeah, that video didn't surface until week 11, and that's why action was taken. Even though the incident occurred, as I recall, back in the winter, like January or February. Is that how you recall it, Vahe?
Yeah, I recall it that way. And you know, just real quick on the video thing, the thing that is kind of funny about it is Sam pointed this out in a different aspect, but like just going along on other stuff, and he's got to drop in the personal thing and then go back to other stuff. He just sort of pops it in there. And Sam McDowell and I had a little exchange about this last night, and I think that, at least I don't want to speak for Sam McDowell, but my feeling about him dropping it in like that is, the implication is that he was done wrong. That's a little the implication. Probably, though, no matter what this week, of course, it's personal to some degree. He's playing against the team that brought him into the NFL. He probably has relationships in some way in that locker room. He just might have wanted to think about the phrasing, and maybe you don't do that in the euphoria of a post-game locker room while you're dancing around by yourself. So, anyway, you're right, Blair. That's definitely how we remember the timing of it. There's an expression, and I may not be using it quite right, but that it's not possible to break the law. It's only possible to break yourself against the law. And in a little bit of a way, that's what the Kareem Hunt situation was, right? He did this stuff. He lied about it. He kind of broke himself in this, and that's why he got cast away.
Yeah, look, a player is going to do what a player has to do to get himself motivated and say what he has to say to get himself up for a game. And you're right, and that's exactly right, Vi. That was a euphoric moment for the Browns, an unbelievable moment for that franchise. And look, if you're an NFL fan without a rooting interest in the in games or a team, you're really happy for the Cleveland Browns to see what they did last night, knowing their history, and not just in the playoffs, but against Pittsburgh in particular. It's a great moment for that organization in that city. And look, whatever Kareem Hunt said last night, it doesn't spoil it, but it does create a storyline for this week. It was always going to be there, right? Kareem Hunt and the Chiefs, but now it's something else to explore on that front. I find myself wondering, Sam McDowell, what the Chiefs might be like if Kareem Hunt, if this had never happened. He led the NFL in rushing as a rookie in 2017. The last year Alex Smith was the quarterback. So Mahomes comes in 2018 and has this remarkable year, but by week 11 or whatever that was, Kareem Hunt still had, he was not on his way to leading the league in rushing, but he piled up a lot of yards. And after he left, the Chiefs were left with, I think, Spencer Ware and Damian Williams and others to fill in that role that was being held down by a great find in the draft by the Chiefs.
Yeah, I think a lot of things would look different if this team had Kareem Hunt, and most notably, it's a situation that we talk about all the time, which is them at the goal line and 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, those sorts of situations. I mean, there was, what was so weird about Kareem Hunt to me is when he went into the locker room, he didn't strike you as this like formidable presence sort of guy, but man, on the field, that's certainly how he plays. I mean, he bowls over defenders. He does not get moved backwards on first contact. And that's something the Chiefs are obviously going to have to deal with this week, but they've never had that guy since Kareem Hunt left. So purely from a football perspective, do they miss Kareem Hunt? I think so. I still think they miss Damian Williams this year. They had a pretty good 1-2 thing going as they found out later in that year that Damian Williams brought us a little something different than Kareem Hunt brought. And sure, I mean, I think it's fair to wonder what this running back situation would look like if they had those two guys.
Look, Cleveland's doing a heck of a job, right, with Chubb and Kareem Hunt. So they finished 3rd in the NFL in rushing this year. That is absolutely an issue for the Chiefs to contend with for the game on Sunday. Didn't even mention that game is Sunday, 2:00 Central at Arrowhead Stadium. By the way,
it's 2:05, Blair. I wrote 2:00 in a preview story late last night, and I can't tell you the number of emails I got that said it's 2:05. Which, you know what, I actually appreciated that many people are paying that close attention.
Well, yeah. 2:05 then we'll correct that, and actually it's probably 2:06 and 30 seconds or something to be honest. Look, he's got in the end zone a couple times last night against the Steelers, and but I think it's interesting that Nick Chubb is he's more the alpha dog in that Cleveland backfield than Kareem Hunt. I remember Kareem Hunt as a a punishing runner. I mean, he just really looked for contact and enjoyed the contact. And it's one time, I can't remember who it was against, but led with his cleat when he went up in the air. I can't remember who he kicked, but he was might have gotten a penalty for that. And I'll never forget his first game in a Chiefs uniform. They go to New England to open the 2017 season. He goes nuts, right? Sets the NFL record for I think it was 248 total yards receiving and rushing by a player in his first game. And after the game, he seemed kind of surprised that people wanted to talk to him about it. I don't know what he was expecting or not expecting. He just seemed so unassuming about it. And when the throng of reporters got over there, it was like he kind of deer in the headlights. He's, really? You want to talk to me? And hell yeah, I want to talk to you. Heck of a game. So
he was worried you were going to ask him about the fumble only.
That's right. That's right. I mean, what a incredible game for him, because his first NFL carry started with a lost fumble. I don't know if he's fumbled since. I'm pretty sure he didn't in a Chiefs uniform. I don't know if that's happened in Cleveland since. So, of course, the other delicious storyline here is John Dorsey. John Dorsey, who was released from both organizations, but not until he, helped build the roster for both of them. And you can say, and rightfully so, John is responsible, or he was the general manager that oversaw the drafts and the player acquisitions for guys like Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, Baker Mayfield. He was he went out and he got Kareem Hunt in that trade, Nick Chubb, the draft of Chubb. So Jarvis Landry. Now, Myles Garrett, absolutely. What a couple of fantastic, rosters that he built, and this game is an homage to John Dorsey as much as it is anybody. Except, I don't know where John Dorsey's going to watch the game from. Maybe his basement, or but what a if a team's still looking for a general manager, what a great advertisement Sunday's playoff game is for a guy who built a couple of playoff level rosters. Vahe is, my guess is you're going to try to reach out to John this week, but what strikes you about the John Dorsey Bowl?
Well, what strikes me about it is that I won't reach John Dorsey.
Nobody does.
I suspect there's a chance that John Dorsey is in the Northland at his location where he says he has to go up the top of a hill to get his cell phone connection. Of course, he may be also wanting to be contacted by people. I'm not exactly sure of the state of the job possibilities. It is interesting, Blair. You're right. It is an homage to John in a lot of ways, but it also is a reminder that John doesn't have a job and that neither organization kept him. So that I think no matter how much cred this gives him, it also will lead to, I shouldn't say lead to, I'm sure there's great scrutiny of what went wrong for him in each place too. So it'd be interesting to talk to him. I don't know, Sam Mellinger, you've had some contact with him maybe since I have last, but he doesn't still have a place in Kansas City, does he?
I don't think so. I don't know that for sure, but I don't think so. That Door County thing, like I would imagine that's where he is, except I'm not sure that's a great place to be. I love winter, but I don't know that that's a great place to be right now. But John has been mentioned, right? Like with some GM openings as a guy that teams are interested in, and I'm sure he'd like to be a GM again. And you're right, Blair. I mean, like if they're reaching out, he might just say like, turn on the TV at 2:05 Central, on Sunday.
There's my resume.
There's my resume. Yeah. Check the stats, but John has always been, and he came to Kansas City with that reputation of just being like sort of a next level talent evaluator. Like I think in a lot of ways, like people like us make too much out of, this guy's a better talent evaluator than this other guy. I think there's a lot of luck involved. I think there's a lot of teamwork involved when it's done right. But John has there's a lot of, decisions you can point to that there's something different about him. Like, and he's got misses, everybody does, but there's something different about his ability to evaluate. But, it's been a problem with managing people, and I wanted like nothing nefarious. I've never heard of anything, illicit or, anything like that, but just, not the best manager of a department. And, I always like to think that people learn from mistakes and evolve and all that. But those are 2 red flags, at least as being a GM. If somebody could get him to be an AGM, to lead just the college, just run a draft, that'd be a hell of a thing. But I don't know what he wants. But look, I mean, that's a pretty good. There's people that work their entire lives in football and do good work and don't get anywhere near the accomplishment that John's had already.
I remember back to the Baker Mayfield draft, and Blair, just your coverage of college sports here probably remembers this even better. But wasn't it? It was Sam Darnold and Josh Rosen that a lot of people thought would be the number 1 overall pick, and he went with Baker Mayfield instead. And I still think you could argue the jury's out on exactly what kind of player that Baker Mayfield's going to fully develop into. But we've certainly seen Josh Allen take a step this year forward, and I don't think that's out of the question that Baker Mayfield could do something like that down the line. But he definitely made the right decision in selecting him over the 2 guys I mentioned that were also in that number 1 class, which was Josh Rosen and Sam Darnold.
Yeah, of course, Allen was in that draft, right? He was the 7th overall pick. If I remember this right, Baker went first. Did Darnold go 3?
3 or 4.
3 or
right?
4.
I'm looking at it right now. It's a loaded draft. Saquon Barkley went 2nd.
Chubb was in that.
And then the Browns
Bradley Chubb was in that draft.
Yeah.
Bradley Chubb, Denzel Ward, the Browns took 4th overall, turned into a good player, obviously. And then they got Nick Chubb early in the 2nd round.
So
that draft was loaded. Lamar Jackson,
32. He was the last quarterback taken. It was the last player taken in the 1st round, and the 5th quarterback, right? Because it was Allen, Darnold, Rosen, and Jackson. So and it's along with Mayfield. So it turns out to be a heck of a draft. Now you throw in Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson from the previous draft, and you're looking at least in the AFC now, right? Especially after watching Roethlisberger last night and Phillip Rivers unable to get his team downfield in the final couple minutes against Buffalo. You're looking at the quarterbacks, absolutely the future of AFC quarterbacks anyway, aren't we? I mean, that's this may be talk about next gen. I think this is what I saw a tweet last night that Mayfield's the oldest of those 4. Mayfield is in his 3rd year in the NFL, is the oldest of the 4 quarterbacks left in the AFC. I think that's kind of wild.
That is surprising.
Yeah,
Justin Herbert too.
Yeah, Herbert, and then Trevor Lawrence will probably be part of the future of the AFC as well.
Yeah, good point. That's a really good point, Sam. Okay. The other thing about John Dorsey, before we leave that topic, I just wanted to give him props for finding the talent in the later rounds. I always thought that was a mark of a John Dorsey. To find Travis Kelce he was a 3rd rounder, I believe, right? Mitch Morris in the 2nd round. Tyreek Hill was kind of you have to put him in a different category because there was just some teams that were absolutely not going to draft him, but he went in the 5th round. And I'll never forget that maybe the favorite draft story of John Dorsey, in terms of finding a gem in the late rounds, was Laurent Duvernay-Tardif. Dorsey just loved talking about how the Chiefs were one of the very few teams that were on LDT, and went to Montreal several times to scout him and to test him, and they ended up drafting him, I believe, in the 6th round. And so that was John always enjoyed talking about LDT, and turned out to be a terrific draft pick.
He did. You're just making me smile thinking of I think the first words we ever heard from John about LDT were like, "You're going to like talking to this guy."
Exactly. Another little minor storyline in this game. The Browns' offensive line is terrific, right? Conklin was first team All-Pro. They've got two on both guards were second team All-Pro. Conklin went off the field with an injury, hamstring injury. Yeah. We'll have to wait and see how he is for this week. Do you know who the offensive line coach is for the Cleveland Browns? By your silence, I will take that as you don't know.
I do not.
It's Bill Callahan, the former Nebraska head coach, who maybe except for that time with the Huskers, and of course he was the head coach of the Raiders for a while. Was in the Super Bowl with the Raiders when they lost to the Tampa Bay Bucks. He's really been an offensive line coach his entire life, and I just talk about a guy who's probably in the right spot and doing the right thing versus trying to be a head coach. It's Bill Callahan. He is. I hope he does. Hope he doesn't have head coaching aspiration after this, but he has done a great job shaping the offensive line in Cleveland. And look, that's going to be an issue for the Chiefs. Any team that with a strong offensive line, think of the Raiders, can really control the clock and keep Chiefs Patrick Mahomes and the offense off the field. I think that's a big strength of the Browns. And assuming we all watched some of that game last night, and we'll get into this in a bigger way on Thursday, but just sort of a first thought on where the Browns can hurt the Chiefs. Sam McDowell, what do you think?
Yeah, that's number one for me. Pro Football Focus ranks them as the best run blocking unit in the NFL and the best pass blocking unit in the NFL. And Next Gen stats show that Baker Mayfield gets more time to throw the football than any other quarterback in the league. And so you mentioned it. I mean, when the Chiefs don't get home from the defensive line, they struggle defensively. And we've seen the Chiefs not get home as often this year as they did last year. I think they're 22nd in the NFL this year in hurry percentage, even though they blitz a fair amount. They've only had 32 sacks all year. And to me, and there might be a story coming on this later this week, but the defensive line is one of the primary keys to how far this team can go this year. Obviously Patrick Mahomes, we all know that. We all know enough about the offense, but I think the defensive line is going to have to make some more plays than they did in the regular season to keep this thing going this year.
Absolutely. So the Chiefs have had success against some of the elder statesman quarterbacks, right? They beat Tom Brady, they beat Drew Brees. And the younger ones earlier this year beat Josh Allen, beat Lamar Jackson. This is the second time the Chiefs will have squared off against Baker Mayfield. They played the Browns in 2018. It was one of Kareem Hunt's last games with the Chiefs, not the last, but I think one of the last games. They went up to Cleveland and won, and so Baker Mayfield was actually pretty good that game. Threw for about 300 yards and a couple of touchdowns, and however, I don't remember the offensive line being, big for Cleveland that year. It is now, and they're really a key to their success. So, is there some encouraging? Are there some encouraging signs about the way the Chiefs' defense has played the last couple of games or last few games of the regular season? They lost in the close victory over the Falcons. I thought the defense played pretty well that game, and against Matt Ryan and that Falcons offense. Frank Clark's had a couple of sacks in the last couple of games he played. Tyrann Mathieu, all-pro safety. Should the Chiefs start feeling a little bit better about the way the defense has played the last few weeks of when the starters played?
I think you can. I think it's a little bit of the Rorschach test thing, right? You can find some stuff that you don't like there, but a moment that really stuck out to me in that Falcons game, and this is sort of how I've come to see the defense, is after Tyreek Hill chased down, I can't remember who had the interception, but after he chased him down, and that was sort of a pivot point in the game, the next two plays were Chiefs sacks. And to me, I've just kind of come to think they're a come through kind of team on both sides of the ball, and so at that, and $4.75 will get you a cup of coffee, but I feel like that's who they are right now.
Used to be a quarter for that cup of coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you get the senior break, you can still get it for like 50 cents at McDonald's. Unfortunately, somebody misunderstood my age once, and that happened.
That's who they showed themselves to be down the stretch last year. Was they sort of like a clutch pass rush defense, which I've never really heard of before. And maybe I'm making up a term, but it's sure and you never know. Is that luck? Is it just like sort of happenstance? That's when they happen to beat the guy in front of them, or is there something strategic going on? Either Frank Clark, Chris Jones, Alex Okafor, whoever, saving their best rushes for these moments. Is it Steve Spagnuolo, with the right blitz at the right time? I don't know, but I've never heard of that before. You hear about like clutch shooter in basketball, like whatever. I just never heard of a clutch pass rushing unit, but that's who these guys have shown themselves to be. I also think about how much different Frank Clark was last year in the postseason after he had, they got the bye. I thought that was just critical for him and Patrick Mahomes, both of them. And now he's had 3 weeks, right? It'll be 21 days.
Yeah.
To get right for 3 more games. And I don't know. I mean, he's certainly been underwhelming. I thought the Falcons game was probably his best game of the season, maybe since I thought he was really good against the Texans in the opener, actually. But anyway, one of his best games of the season against the Falcons. So you never know. I thought that was the defense's best all-around game. Maybe the Jets and the Broncos. I don't know what to make of those games, but they got all these stops right when they needed it. The offense was struggling, and the defense came through over and over again. If you look back at Saints, Dolphins, Bucks, maybe I'm forgetting about somebody a game, but the Chiefs were really good defensively for about 3 quarters, maybe 3+, and then they gave up 14 points in the fourth quarter, which you can't do. But if you think about really good for 3 quarters, then put it together for 4 at the end, as a former Chiefs coach might say, the arrow is pointing up for that unit. So who knows? But I also think that the Chiefs are going to be able to give up some points and still beat the Browns, because that's as good as Myles Garrett is, that secondary can be had.
Hey, just a quick numbers thing. That makes me feel like this game might be a little like that Mahomes Baker Mayfield game that we're going to hear about again this week. The Browns scored an NFL record 28 points in the first quarter. Just lightning, right? They had some help with the turnovers, but also gave up 501 passing yards to statuesque Ben Roethlisberger. So I think it's going to be it might be more about who just outlasts the other with the video scoring machine that this might be.
That's a trend too, Vahe. I mean, this is a team that gives up a lot of passing yards. Of the 8 teams left in the playoffs, they have the worst passing defense. And if the Seahawks and Titans had made it, they'd have the worst of any of them that qualified. And they also give up big plays. So to me, it's a little bit of a dream matchup for Patrick Mahomes. If you're, obviously there's no easy teams in the playoffs, but of the 8 left, I think this is the best matchup for Patrick Mahomes. You mentioned Myles Garrett. They've got a guy on the other side of the defensive line, Oliver Vernon, that had a fantastic year, and he's out. And they don't have a lot of guys now outside of Myles Garrett that can get home. And I just wonder if the Chiefs will be able to help neutralize Garrett a little bit by shading some of his attention his way now.
Got a lot of good comments here. Let's get to a few of them. Colin Levac, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Colin, actually gets to watch this live for once. Thanks. Appreciate you tuning in. Check us out on Thursday as well. We'll be back on Thursday. Brian Johnson says we're preparing for our 3rd Super Bowl trip if we still had Hunt. Interesting comment, suggesting that that with Hunt, the Chiefs would have beaten the Patriots in the 2018 AFC Championship game. I think that's fair to suggest. Jesse Bates wants to know if there's any updates on Clyde Edwards-Helaire. We'll know that at noonish today. That's when we meet with Andy Reid. And I think there's Sam McDowell, what are the percentage chances that we'll get information from Andy Lee that'll let us know if Clyde Edwards-Helaire is healthy?
I think by Wednesday we will, but I think it's moving in the right direction. There's been progress there to where it's possible that we could see Clyde Edwards-Helaire back for this game this week.
Okay. Hey, one little other subject I wanted to cover, and it's about the first round, the wild card round in general. A couple of things. First of all, did anybody watch the Nickelodeon version of Saints Bears?
I didn't. I turned over after I saw all the fuss. Excuse me, and it was really fun. It was really fun. I don't know how everybody else felt about it, but my wife Cindy really got into it in a whole different way. So that's something. Appealed to her sense of humor.
Well, the slime in the end zone for the after the touchdowns, and then the real slime on Sean Payton in victory, I thought were very nice touches, and it's a smart thing to do for the NFL. To why not? Listen, if that's not your cup of tea, you could have gone to CBS to watch, Nance and Romo, and I thought it was a good idea by the NFL, and I think I think the reviews will be positive for that. How about the decisions to punt near or around midfield by Mike Vrabel in the Titans-Ravens game and Mike Tomlin last night against the Browns? Both teams trailing in the fourth quarter, both with 4th and short. I think Tomlin's was 4th and 1 at midfield, and Vrabel might have been 4th and 2 on his side of midfield. And those guys punting, if I'm a fan of the Steelers or the Titans, I'm screaming at the television set. Sam Melliger, did you catch those?
I mean, I think there's a reason that you're asking me specifically. You know what I thought about that.
I know.
Yeah, I did the same thing. I'm not a fan of either of those teams, and I was screaming. And those are two really good coaches.
Yeah,
I mean, those are two of the best coaches in the NFL, I think. And I don't know. There's so much information. I think coaches are smart. All this stuff. That's a spot where, especially like a lot of good coaches seem to be very far behind on what is proven, what has evidence of giving a team the best chance to win. And I don't know which one was worse. That's you can make an argument for either because they were both horrendous. But I don't know. You're not giving yourself a chance to win. There's so much like conservative thinking just sort of baked into the football culture. And, people like John Harbaugh really stick out, when they make decisions the way that they do. I don't get it. I'll never understand it. I think those guys need to evolve. And I say that with all due respect. I mean, these are, again, like top shelf coaches, I think. But, God, that's a glaring weakness there.
To layer onto that, I mean, because Sam's right, those are both really good football coaches, and that they put so much time into the X's and O's of the game, the matchups, best preparing their team, and just to leave that as a blind spot doesn't make a lot of sense to me, because that stuff matters just as much as the X's and O's a lot of times. Ben Baldwin on Twitter, you guys should follow him, but he has a 4th down model on every single 4th down decision, and the Steelers' decision cost them a 7% chance to win the football game last night. That is a big deal. What other play call or play design is going to have that big of a sway on the game? I mean, I think the Steelers could win the game last night if they go for it, and especially the same with the Titans. I thought that was the more egregious one.
Between the two of you guys, you probably could create your own index for this, and maybe your formula is better, but I'm onto this.
My formula would just say go for it. I wouldn't look at the numbers.
Well, and I'm not even really sure how much we should all give credence to surrender index, but I've kind of been following that, and it says that the Pittsburgh deciding to punt on that 4th and 1 had a surrender index of 9.29, ranking in the 94th percentile of cowardly punts of the 2020 season.
The Titans one was number 1, though, Vahe. The Titans, the Titans one was even worse. It was in the 99th percentile.
Brian LaBerge points out that both Tomlin and Vrabel, defensive coaches, entrusted their defenses in that situation. I go back to week 2. Vahe, you and I are out in L.A., and the Chiefs are struggling against the Chargers, a good Chargers defense. They get the game to overtime, and the Chiefs face a 4th and 1. I believe it was from their 46, and it's an overtime, right?
Yeah.
Andy Reid goes for it. I believe that's when Darwin Thompson got the call, and
right.
picked up a couple yards, maybe even a little more. and that led to Harrison Butker's game-winning 58-yard field goal. Andy Reid, offensive-minded coach, and the Chiefs. I can't think of maybe I'm just missing it, but I can't think of an occasion this year where they punted on 4th down from around midfield, and I just shook my head and say, "Well, why are they doing that? Am I missing something, or was there an example?"
I do remember one. I can't remember which game. Are you got it, McDowell?
Well, I was just going to say that just to follow up on Blair's thing real quick, that was rated as Andy Reid's best 4th down decision of the season.
Oh wow!
I do remember one that I kind of disagreed with, but I didn't feel like agree. I understand where I stand. You know what I mean? So I understand that I'm coming to these, as sort of an extremist in some ways. So
we all understand where you stand. So.
Well,
yeah. But I do remember one. I can't remember which game it was.
Is it the Broncos game? Mellinger, his worst decision, I think, rated of the year was the Broncos game. He kicks the field goal late in the game and probably could have won the game there.
Yep.
But I will say, Andy Reid, and I wrote about this, several weeks ago now it's been, but I think he was rated like 3rd or 4th in the NFL in 4th down decisions, and he's come a long way because he used to rate negative in that category, below league average. And he got a guy in 2018, and he's moved along with him for the aggression index.
Hey, quick flip point too. It sort of am I remembering this right? In overtime, the Chargers did punt.
Correct.
Yes,
that was rated as. Was rated as one of the worst decisions of the season for any team.
Yeah.
And it was that possession that the Chiefs took over and marched to around midfield to get Butker in position for the field goal. So one team's in the divisional round, the other team's looking for a head coach right now. So, all right, you guys, great conversation to start the week, and terrific comments from you guys. Thanks a lot. And for Sam McDowell, Vahe Gregorian, Sam Mellinger, and Herbie Tiope, and our producer, Beth Welsh, thanks for joining us this morning, and we will talk to you again on Thursday.